Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Jennings, and this is a Face Project podcast, episode number 16. Welcome to a Face Project podcast.
Hello?
It's just pure life. It's pure
And my
innocence.
mom
it's
is a
pure
writer. My
gratitude.
So I ended up in America.
I am an adopted
because
Korean and have been all my
To me,
life.
it's a perfect blend of science and
I
creativity.
was screaming, I will live over here till I die.
A Face Project podcast features stories told by people from around the world that broaden our understanding of the human experience. Essentially, what we're trying to do is give folks that want to share stories a platform and a voice. And I think we are all hardwired to make judgments and have assumptions about other people based on how they look or how they act or what they believe. And in today's media climate, which is often really toxic, we just really want to give you as a listener a way to see someone's face by looking at the portraits on our website, as well as hear their voice and hopefully develop a better understanding of what their experience is, and possibly, ultimately, change your own viewpoint as you wonder about the world. Before we get into today's story, I just want to mention a couple of items. First things first, we have a couple of new contributing members at A Face Project. If you're not familiar with the contributing membership, but you're a regular listener to the podcast, consider heading over to afaceproject.com. You can look under the About menu and find the Contribute tab. Contributing memberships work a lot like public radio memberships. For us to produce the bi-monthly podcast and quarterly magazine that we produce, it takes a lot of work and a few people to do it. So this fund pays for everything from audio production to equipment to some of our staff and services, layout and design, marketing, photography, copy editing, transcription, sales, etc. So in order to do this project, we definitely need your help. And you can do a sustaining contribution or just a one-time contribution. Any amount. There's no minimum limit. Sustaining contributions are taken from your account once a month, and one-time contributions are one-time contributions. So there's a couple different levels too. There's a few gifts involved. $25 or more a month. You get a 1-year subscription to A Face Project magazine. And there's other stuff to check out as well. So if you go to afaceproject.com/contribute, you can learn more there. And thank you all who have already generously offered your support. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. In today's episode, we're going to hear from Fred. I'm really excited to be publishing this particular story right now. Although we try to keep our stories very timeless, meaning we hope that years from now people can look back and listen to them and read them in the magazine and still get some value and learn something about the people that are sharing. However, it's an election season and we're coming up on a really, really historic moment, at least in United States history and politics. And Fred has some really interesting things to share about the idea of leadership and what makes a good leader, what makes an effective leader. And I think that, considering the timing of this episode, you will enjoy what he has to say. Here's Fred.
I think it was probably in me already, that cooperative kind of understanding of things. And the co-ops helped me blossom in that. But it was, there are probably people out there that remember some little ugly things of my ego coming out and flailing about and not respecting. Luckily, I was in a safe enough environment that I got feedback and I wasn't thrown out. I was cared about, and I was able to hone that, and I'm still, I have to say I'm still working on that. My name is Fred Greco. I was born in 1945 in Concordia, Kansas, if you can imagine. My dad was out here at the end of World War II. He was a guard at a prisoner of war camp, and they had German and Italian prisoners in the middle of the country. And since he grew up in a Italian-speaking household, he could speak Italian, and he was talking with them. He had just a great experience with them. They were both the German and Italian prisoners, just regular people doing their thing. Even though he was there and they had a gun, but he did put the gun down. He said, "Look, we don't need this. We need to be trusting each other." And people did. I took something from that about leadership, that even in a prisoner of war situation, if you're connecting with people and you're connecting with their humanity, you're human, they're human, and most times you'll get good out of it. After the war, they went back to New York. I actually grew up in New York City. It's big change. But my mom, who also grew up in New York, in city, Manhattan, she just loved the Midwest. She made lasting friends, and there was something about it here that just fed her soul. So I grew up with those stories. And it's kind of funny that I wind up back out here because I had no thought about it. But I had been a teacher before that. I was an elementary school teacher in New York City. And in the school system, I was kind of an outlier. Very nice people. And mostly women. Very nice, but very, very straight. Just kind of following what teachers have done for years, I guess. And when I went into the school, I realized that wasn't going to work, at least for me, that these kids had to have an environment that they created and they felt was theirs. These were inner city kids. They come from just tough backgrounds, most of them, and they were just beautiful. The energy, the love, the vitality of these children was incredible. Though they grew up in a tough situation, and they were tough, we had trees growing in our, big 6-foot pine trees growing in the classroom. We had all sorts of animals and terrariums. But there was just so much pressure from administrators and superintendents. New York City Public School is a big system. And people would come through, and everybody would have their demands. And, "Oh, my God, you're bringing in a tree. You can't do that. You've got these animals in here. You can't. This makes a mess." And most of the teachers kind of let go to that. But I just couldn't. I was, I think, close enough to my peasant roots that that I knew that you needed the earth around you. But there was just so much pressure on what people what they thought had to be learned. Meanwhile, these kids I thought had to learn how to be together, had to learn how to interact with each other in a healthy, safe way, which is not what they were learning, many of them. Some had great parents, but a lot of them were in homes that were kind of torn up. And so I started to look at the kids as if they were the problem instead of the reason for being there. And I said, "Oh, I better change this before." I said, "I don't want to be one of those teachers." And that's when I left. was probably in my late 20s. I had been traveling for about a year, camping. I met some people along the way, and there was a group that there were four of us that were traveling together, and a woman that we were traveling together with said, "I've been reading about Minnesota, and it's just a great place to be." And I said, "Well, what are you reading?" And she's the statistical abstract. She's reading about jobs, and she said, "Let's meet there." And we were in, I think, Albuquerque, and we split up then and said, "Okay, we'll meet there in 3 months." And that's how I wound up here, just for that. In Minnesota, happened on this little co-op, which was just perfect for me. It was people working together, coming to the world in a different way. Things needed to be done, and I was one of the few people that had a vehicle. So I would go and do pickups at a warehouse, or get mushrooms, or do this or do that. And then, as I was there, some just nice person saw me and said, "You seem to like this. Why don't you come to one of our meetings?" Meeting meant this co-op, not all of them are the same, but this one was something where they called themselves coordinators, not even owners, not directors, but coordinating. Though they were actually people that were running the store, anybody that walked in the door could be part of decision making. That was just amazing to me. So I worked there, worked my heart out because it was for a cause. And I guess that's what my teaching was, in a way, a cause. But this one, everybody was kind of on the same page. It was this understanding of leadership, and how leadership is a role, not a destiny, not what one person is. That leadership is just someone who's is able to provide direction and expertise when needed in a certain area, and then we would follow. And we actually practiced that. Some of us were better at things than others. We're running a store. This is nitty gritty. You have to mop the floors. You have to be nice to people when they come in. You're doing 1,000 little things in a store. Oh my God! And it was a store that wasn't financed. But what I learned was the leadership of following. And that was just so profound for me. I just love that. I could be an excellent, dynamic follower. I never knew that was possible. And that just excited me. And they operated on consensus. What that meant in our group is it didn't mean that everybody agreed. But the people that didn't agree were willing to let go of their direction, their desire, to the majority in the group. Now, they could hold out forever, and everybody would just have to keep talking and working it out. And it was cumbersome, but it was also very strengthening. So we worked as one, even when it could have been people with opposite fighting each other. There was one incident which, again, this was like a kind of a core learning for me. The warehouse, which all the co-ops had contributed to make it there. We gave our money, our work, to make the warehouse happen, and then that they would then distribute to us. They were taken over by this other group, and we had owed them some money. And I was one of the people who said, "Hell no, we're not going to pay them. They just took the building over. That's ours. We are not going to. I don't want to pay that. Hell with that." And there were a number of people that felt that way, but then there were a number also who felt like ethically, we need to pay. That's a bill that we owe this warehouse, and it's an ethical issue. And we tussled and tussled with that. But we actually came to an agreement, and I was so strong against doing it, but I saw in the people who wanted to pay it back how important it was to their morals, to their values, that I could let go of my indignity and my ego, actually, wanting to be right and wanting to get back at them. And I did. I let go, and a number of us that were feeling that way let go to the strength of their values. And we wound up all agreeing and said, okay, we'll pay. And that caused such strength in our organization. You would think it would be terrible, but it wasn't. We knew we were strong and we were together. It was one of those key moments in my life, and which informed and coalesced, I guess, ideas that I had, and didn't quite understand. And it changed the way I did things in the future. A few years later, I actually started a business. I wanted to have that as a co-op, because that's what my business experience was, as a co-op. I liked it, where people are sharing. Nobody else wanted to do it. I don't know if we had about 10, 15 people working there. They didn't want to do it because they realized how risky the business was. It was a startup. We had no money, and nobody wanted to do it. So I wasn't comfortable being a boss, which I then became. But through that, I and the people around me, we developed a way of being in a situation where I would relinquish certain things that are usually attributed to a boss and relinquish that to the group. And I made some big mistakes. There were times when I should have been making more decisions because people weren't. But I was having that co-op headset. I felt like I was betraying something by making decisions. But the good parts were when somebody wasn't working out, I wasn't the person to fire them. It was, we all got together, the work group and that person, and we talked about it. We talked about it together openly with the person there who had just as much say as everybody else. Everybody knew that it wasn't working, and the person just was in agreement and left. It was very respectful, gentle, and empowering, I think, that you weren't being fired. You weren't being thrown on the ash heap of history. And I thought, and other people had said the same thing, that it went remarkably well, that people said the truth, and everybody came to terms with, okay, let's go forward. It was quite a good experience for me. In my 20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, I had a lot of ego. My ego popped up and, did things that I look back on and I go, oh my God. But I think one of the things that in leadership, if you can do it, is you really have to tame your ego. And it's a fine line, because to be a leader, even in the leadership the way I've described it, you have to not have an ego that wants to triumph over others, but you have to have enough of an ego to make decisions when they're necessary. What I did is I bounced between too much ego in the wrong way and not enough in the right way, which wasn't good. So times I needed to make decisions and then hold people to that hold accountable, not forcing, but hold accountable, I didn't do it. And that's a regret of mine. But it also helped me learn about it. So, again, leadership, I think, is a role. I think everybody actually probably shows leadership in some ways. Even with children, when I was teaching, there were children who showed leadership in certain things. And when I followed that, it was better for everybody. So nobody's too old or too young to be a leader. And the people around have to be leaders enough to understand when they're not should be the leader, and become these fantastic followers. And followers are very, very important, because you don't have a leader without followers. And followers could make or break leadership. Followers can design the course. When I was a good follower, I was supporting the leadership in any way that I can. I would challenge leadership in a very positive, constructive way. So it's really a mutual understanding. And I think everybody has to work for the common good. And when you say I say the common good, it's like everybody is important in the decision. Doesn't mean everybody's going to get their way, but everybody needs to be heard. And in that hearing, it shapes direction. But I think that, to me, now that becomes leadership. First thing you do is you listen, and then you start strategizing from there. And you keep bringing people in as they're needed to, what's your expertise? All right, why don't you take this? And it was a hard lesson, I have to say. I was quite individualistic, as I don't know if it's because, my grandparents were immigrants and you had to just make things happen. It wasn't an easy place to be. My parents were first generation to actually be born in the United States. My grandparents, all four of them, spoke Italian, but nobody taught me because we had to be American. So one of the regrets that I have is not being able to speak Italian. And I think that that experience really shaped me also, being a son of immigrants. And it's just, I don't know, it's just rewarding to see now new generations of people coming in with that same kind of thing. And I know how much I love America. I love the freedom and the responsibility of democracy. I mean, that's what I really love. I mean, America is tries to be a good example now, but it's really democracy that I love. And I know, oh my goodness, here's some more people that could learn that same thing and could love that democracy and bring it further. It just excites me. So I see immigrants and I actually get excited because I could see myself in them. Yeah, instead of being fearful, it excites me.
This episode was recorded and produced by Daniel Zamzow and myself. Web layout and design by Aaron Woods. Music by Cloud Cult. And a quick reminder, we like to keep you guys updated about once a month with our newsletter. Sometimes we do promotions. We'll be running some holiday promotions if you're looking for the perfect sort of thing to give the people in your life as a gift. If you head on over to our website and scroll down on the homepage to the bottom, fill out our newsletter widget, You'll be added to our newsletter. You can easily remove your name if you don't want to get newsletters anymore. But if you sign up to our newsletter this week, we will be giving you a free digital copy of the latest issue of our magazine, Volume 1, Issue 2 of A Face Project's magazine. So head on over to afaceproject.com, scroll to the bottom, throw in your email, and we will hit you back with a digital copy of the latest magazine. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate every single one of you, and it's always wonderful to hear that you're enjoying what we're doing. So if you get a minute, head to iTunes, leave us a review. Just keep listening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.